Uh,
This meeting is being recorded.
so you heard the notice about the recording. So what I was going to do is, well, let me say this, and then I'll get over to my script for the workshop. I've been a student of A Course in Miracles for over 20 years. I've been studying this book. And most people, if you tell them you've been reading a book for 20 years, they think, well, God, you must be a really slow reader.
No, no, believe me, no. It's it's a whole lot more than just reading the book.
Yeah, and the thing is, it expands vertically. It goes deeper every time. So it's not trying to get from page 1 to page 1209. It's that every time I read page 1 again, I get a deeper insight that I didn't get last year. So it's that kind of material. I hope you'll think so after I introduce it and we get started here.
Okay.
Let me begin by saying God's blessings to you and welcome to the workshop. I'm Reverend Jim White, and I'm very pleased to have you join me for today's presentation of Introduction to A Course in Miracles, a spiritual treasure that many people don't know about. Well, we've kind of talked about, and if I didn't mention, I'm from Ypsilanti, Michigan.
Okay.
If you've never heard of it, it's right next door to Ann Arbor, Michigan, where the University of Michigan is. Like you cross a street and you're in Ann Arbor, okay? So hopefully.
Yeah, just to intercede here, I was born and raised in Cleveland, near Cleveland, Ohio, and went to
Okay.
school at Bowling Green. So I'm very familiar with what you're talking about.
I got you then. So let me just tell you a little bit more about me now that we've gotten things started here. I've been a student and teacher of A Course in Miracles for over 20 years now. And since the beginning, the course's teachings and the application of its principles have had a truly profound and miraculous impact on my life. I use the word miraculous because it's A Course in Miracles, right? So, but anyhow, I digress. When I first started doing A Course in Miracles back in 2001, I started running into a problem. And the problem was that whenever I talked to other people about A Course in Miracles, I found out most of them have never even heard of it. And of those who had heard of it, they didn't seem to know much about it. So, since doing a course that benefited me so much, and since I kept running into this problem when I talked to people, I got the idea of creating workshops and other activities to let more people know about A Course in Miracles. And of course, for those who were interested, to use my experience and my resources to help them to learn more about how to study the course and probably more importantly, how to use it in their daily lives. And so I guess in short, I became a Course in Miracles teacher, and I've been doing this for roughly the past 20 years. In order to initiate my teaching activities, I started a company called Love Communications back in 2005. And then in 2014, I reestablished it as Love Communications Ministries, a 501c3 nonprofit corporation. So that's the short version about my background. I'll be telling you more about me and my involvement as we go forward. Any questions so far, or anything else you'd like to say by way of introducing yourselves, or are we good? What do you think?
I'm good.
I'm
All
okay.
right. I'm good too. So let me start by saying I'm going to be doing screen shares and putting things up on the screen. And the first one, I've got maybe, I don't know, 5 slides to show you, or screen slides. So let me put that first one up. I'm still trying to be a Zoom expert here. I'm working on it. I'm going to share screen and show you the first slide here. Bear with me. I may as well get that done. All right. So hopefully you can see my screen, and I'm going to pull up the first screen slide, which is called Workshop Overview. Can you see that okay? Maybe I can make it a little bit. Is that okay for you guys?
Yeah.
So in our overview, I want to just share our purpose and goals, and then just give you an outline of what we're going to cover today, okay?
All
Okay.
right.
Workshop overview, purpose and goals. Introduction to A Course in Miracles, a spiritual treasure many people don't know about, is a one-day workshop designed to provide you with basic information about A Course in Miracles. This workshop will introduce you to A Course in Miracles, present excerpts from A Course in Miracles for your review and evaluation. And then I'd like to share my personal journey, my personal experience with A Course in Miracles with you. We will explain the origin, purpose, and use of A Course in Miracles. Then I'd like to give you a sampling of what it's like to take the course. In other words, to do this Course in Miracles. And then I'll have some additional resources to help you learn more about A Course in Miracles. Our overall goal is to provide you with information about this God-inspired writing that many people don't know about. We believe that A Course in Miracles offers a practical, non-religious, non-political way to more fully know God and to actually and consistently experience His peace that passes all understanding. We doing okay so far?
Yep, I am.
All right. Now, here's our outline for today. We did the welcome, and I'm in the midst of the workshop overview, right?
Right.
So next, I want to tell you a bit more about my experience with A Course in Miracles. Then I'm going to show you some passages from the course and talk about your first impressions of this stuff. Like, Carol, I remember hearing you say you didn't understand it, right?
Correct.
And after that, we'll really get into it. What is A Course in Miracles? I'll give you information about its origin and what it's for and stuff like that. And I'll also reinforce that by showing you a video. It's off of YouTube by A Course in Miracles teacher named Max Ryan. It's called The Beginner's Overview to A Course in Miracles. And I think Max does a very nice job of giving an overview of the course. So between those two things, I think we can answer that question, what is A Course in Miracles? After that comes our intermission. We'll take about a 10-minute break. And then we'll do a tour of the course so I can show you its structure and organization, as well as some relevant passages to give you an overview of how the course is put together as a teaching tool. And after that, we'll start wrapping things up, take your final questions and comments. I want to tell you about our participant package, which I'll be sending you after our session by email, and also tell you about our workshop evaluation form that I hope each of you will complete and submit so I can see how I'm doing here, okay?
All right.
Great.
All right. I'm hoping it will be as painless as possible for you. I'm here to have a good time because I've come here. Here's what I tell my study group. We meet every week on Tuesday evening. What I'm coming to understand is the new spirituality. And in the new spirituality, I say, if you ain't smiling, it's not spiritual. Because
Okay.
the spirituality that I'm here to talk with you about is the happiest ending to any story you could ever imagine. Trust me, okay, and see what you think as we go along here. Hold on a moment. Okay. What I'd like to do next here is, I guess I need to stop screen sharing. We've already done that. And what I'd like to do next is, like we said on the outline, is tell you a little bit more about how I discovered A Course in Miracles and how it's impacted me and how I can be a great witness to the course's value in your life. Like I said before, I call A Course in Miracles a spiritual treasure that many people have never heard of. I first heard of A Course in Miracles back in 2001 when I happened to turn on the TV and there was a program on called Church of Today. And the speaker, when I happened to turn it on, was the pastor of the church. Her name is Marianne Williamson. Have y'all ever heard of her at all?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. She ran for president in 2020, and I understand she's just thrown her hat in the ring again for
Right.
2024. But within our discussion, the context of what we're talking about, as I found out, she's one of the most renowned Course in Miracles teachers in the world. But I didn't know all of that when I turned on the TV. All I knew is I really liked watching this woman. She was an excellent speaker. She was easy to look at. She was young and vibrant. She had that whole skill set, right? But what really caught my attention about Marianne and this Church of Today program is that Marianne kept quoting from this Course in Miracles in her sermon the way other pastors I've known quote it, like from the Bible. And so after watching Church of Today a few times and hearing Marianne and her quotes from A Course in Miracles, I said to myself, boy, I'd like to learn more about this course, and where could I get more information on taking it? And of course, as it turned out, A Course in Miracles was not really a course or class as I first imagined. Instead, it turned out that it was just a book. And I found this out one day when I was over to my sister's house, and I was talking about the course and my inspiring experiences with it. And my sister goes, oh yeah, I got that book upstairs. And that's how I even found out it was a book. So my sister went up and got the book, and she let me borrow it, and I started reading it. And I found it so interesting and compelling, I didn't put it down. Now, notice I didn't say I understood it, but there was just something about it that encouraged me to read more. So I asked my sister if I could keep the book a while longer and maybe make some notations. And well, let me just say, my sister never got her book back because I made so many notations. I had to just buy her a new book. And I remember back in 2005, when I first started doing the workshops, I would hold up my sister's book so people could see how well worn it was with all the notations. But I had to stop doing that because eventually the whole book just fell apart out of the binding, right? At any rate, A Course in Miracles was completely different from anything I'd ever read. It was said to be a book directly from Jesus Christ. And it said these incredible things with authority, things I'd never heard before, and quite frankly, things that at first I just couldn't really believe. Yet the way Jesus explained things in the course, and the more often I read it, it actually started making sense. As a matter of fact, eventually it started making so much more sense than what I used to think made sense. Does that make sense, what I'm saying to you?
Yep.
A Course in Miracles was the first book I'd ever read that explained life and God in such a way that there were no differences, no exceptions to what he said, no ifs, ands, or buts, no caveats. And he said that every statement he made was guaranteed to be true. Even more important, I guess, is that after I really started getting into A Course in Miracles, I started to notice that positive changes were actually occurring in my life, just as Jesus in the Course said they would. It was kind of spooky, right, at the beginning, but something I could easily get used to. Now, I grew up in the Black Baptist church, and I was a pretty serious student of the Bible. I mean, I was no expert, but I'd have to say I read the Bible extensively. I attended several Bible classes over the years and things like that. But after I started reading and studying A Course in Miracles, I started to see that, in all honesty, the Bible hadn't fully answered and clarified my fundamental questions about, like, who am I and why am I here? And especially, why am I in this place, this world that sometimes seems to be so terrible? You know, I always heard we'd go to church and the minister would say, God is love. And the congregation was supposed to say, all the time. But I have to admit, I could only utter that in a rather half-hearted way, because I couldn't understand that if God was God and God is love, it's like God is love, but don't piss him off or he'll smite you and your family and generation upon generation. God is love, but he's a fearful God. How do you reconcile fear and love? Well, that's where A Course in Miracles started to come in with some answers. And so as I got started into doing A Course in Miracles more and more, I started to realize that it not only addressed my questions about life, but it did so eagerly and in a very straightforward way. I mean, it even brought up and answered related questions I hadn't even thought of. Now, A Course in Miracles is a book about love, peace, joy, happiness, and truth. Yet many of the things it says may shock, astound, and even anger you. Many of the things it says you may not at first believe. But to paraphrase what Jesus says in the Course, belief is not a requirement. Simply do the Course, and the Course itself will show you that it's true, that it works, and that it will profoundly change your life for the better. So I'd just like to say, as we go through the remainder of our workshop today, and as you learn more about A Course in Miracles and the Course in Miracles thought system, I wouldn't be surprised if you're skeptical. I was too. All I ask, guys, is that you keep an open mind about the things we're going to talk about today. And and also the love with which this information is presented. And so that's kind of my background and my introduction. But let me sum things up here with a screen slide I put together. And I think it's called Yay, there it is. It's called How the Course Has Changed My Life. Hold on a minute. Would you bear with me here?
Sure.
Something's not quite right here.
I'll be quiet.
Please bear with me. Something's not right. I'm pulling up Word documents when I want PDF documents. That's why it's not looking right. This is the folder I should be working from. All right, I'm a bit embarrassed here, but please bear with me.
No problem. We have trouble too.
Yeah, if you didn't know Zoom, you gonna have to, because I think you are going here, right? So what I want to do is pull up a PDF file called How the Course Has Changed My Life. Now that's better, I think. Here's
We can
my
read this.
summation. Pardon me, Carol?
I said we can read this one much better.
Okay, good deal. How ACIM has changed my life. 1, I've discovered that, like God, I am a spirit, not a body. I am spirit, not a body. 2, I've discovered that 2 mutually exclusive choices govern my life experience: love, the power of God, or fear, the power of an imaginary entity called the ego. Have y'all heard of that, of the ego? Probably you have, Carol, if you've read the course. The
Yes.
ego, okay. And just in general, the adversary in the Bible, the ego might be called the devil. You with me, Mike?
I'm not sure what you mean by ego.
There's lots of different.
That's fine.
Have you heard, what about the devil?
Oh, I've heard of the devil, yes.
All right. So the Course in Miracles is more a psychology-based book, like out of Sigmund Freud with the ego and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
So what the Bible called the devil in this book could be called the ego. It's the adversary. It's the one that's counter to the truth, if you will.
All right.
Get behind me, devil. Well, we'll say, get behind me, ego. All right, because I'm following the truth. Number 3, I understand that God is love and that he has no opposite. I've learned that my gift from God is all powerful. Whatever I think and believe comes into existence, at least for me. Thought power is a very powerful power. Number 5, I've realized that my belief in separation from God is the only quote unquote problem I have. I've been taught that real power, and it's counterintuitive in this world, real power is in goodliness, innocence, and guess what? Defenselessness. These are powers that come from God. 7, I've realized that I'd have to be insane to believe that there can be a will different from God's. I've discovered that this Holy Spirit is real. He's just invisible, and that he works miracles in my life when I let him. You guys, the term Holy Spirit is familiar to you, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, good. Number 9, I'm much better at recognizing the difference between reality and this thing called illusions.
Okay.
10, I understand that my brothers and sisters are but a mirror of myself. In reality, we are all one. I've discovered that all the sons and daughters of God are the Christ. Christ is our family name. I'm Jim Christ, you're Mike Christ, and there's Carol Christ. We're all the Christ, fully endowed with Christ's attributes and power. Remember how Jesus Christ kept saying, you can do all the things that I can do and more. It's because we're all in the same family, you see. 12, I understand that unconditional forgiveness is the main activity in God's plan of salvation. I've learned, number 13, and this is a biggie, I've learned that this world really is a dream, but an all-important educational dream, and that the Holy Spirit is my teacher. And by the way, I have a new book out. I'll tell you more about that. But the title of the book is Earth School, parenthesis, Why We Think We're Here, implying that we're not really, right? My 12 teachings from A Course in Miracles. But I digress. But here we are. I've learned that this world is, from A Course in Miracles, that this world is a dream. It's not real, but it's a dream with a purpose. You with me?
Yeah.
Do you remember Shakespeare? He says, the world is but a stage and all the men and women are merely actors on the stage.
Yep.
But Shakespeare doesn't tell you what the play is about. What's the purpose of the play? And A Course in Miracles does. As a result, and I'm going to just stick to the script here before I confuse you. As a result, I'm more peaceful, comfortable, and happy in all situations because I'm learning who I really am, where I'm really am, what my purpose is, and what the future holds. And like I said at the outset, it's great news. It's the happiest ending anyone could ever imagine. So that is the good news. And let me stop here and just ask, of your thoughts or questions or comments so far before we move on? Yes, go right ahead.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
I was asking Carol if she had a thought. I have a couple of thoughts.
Yes, Mike.
Okay, so when you say that there's no opposite to God,
Yes.
um, so I'm curious about what salvation means then.
It makes me think of one of the lines from the Gospels that says, "Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free."
Right?
You know how we believe in good and evil, and that these are forces and we have to fight against evil because evil is a very powerful power. Jesus says, you're mistaken about evil. If God is God, and if God is all that is, and if God is love, and you found yourself someplace that's not loving, where could you be? If you're outside of all that is, you must be in la la land. And so we are. We're in a reality that is not real. We don't have to fight against it because there's gonna be a better technique. But let me show you what it is, Mike. You come into your house in the evening and the room is dark and you flip on the light switch. What happens to the darkness?
Well, what happens is that there is no darkness because there's light.
Was there a fight between the darkness and the light? Or did the light just win automatically?
Well, it seems like it wins, yes. If everything's working right.
Do you see that despite all the buildup, darkness has no power? Darkness might be defined as merely the absence of light.
Okay.
Jesus describes fear as what comes over you when you believe you're not loved. But if you feel like love is real and that you are going to be taken care of, doesn't that mitigate the fear?
Sure. So are you talking about mostly the ego here that seems to be opposed to the light? Seems like it.
Yes, the ego thought system. Now, you know, we have a tendency to personify things. Like there's God up on the throne, but then there's this other dude over here that's against God, and it's like two humans would fight it. No, the ego thought system maintains that there can be an opposite to love. And it demonstrates that to you all the time. The first thing is the ego makes you think you're a separate body. Inherent in the idea of separation is loneliness, fearfulness, the need to protect yourself. Do you see where I'm going? It all flows from what you think is reality. And what the Course teaches is that That's not true. You're making this up with your thought power of opposites, and you are a mighty child of the Creator. You are endowed with the same thought power that your Creator has, except you're using it like a little kid, and you're having all of these crazy imaginings. And if you devote your power to it, it's free will, it's God-given. It'll make whatever you want. It's just that if it's not in accord with the will of God, what you make is what the Course calls an illusion. It can't be real because God is the author of reality. How am I doing, sir?
Well, I don't want this to be all about my questions, Jim, for sure. But
And I don't want to, it doesn't take much to have me go off the deep end. So
okay, one
it
further
brief.
question. So how does A Course in Miracles explain what's going on in Ukraine?
A Course in Miracles explains what's going on in Ukraine as there is no friggin' Ukraine.
Oh, well,
However,
okay.
we can, here, Ukraine is representative of what happens when you believe in conflict, when you believe in opposition, when you believe that you have to grab and possess things.
Mhm.
This is my territory. All of these come out of the idea of separation from one another. This is my country. This is your. How's that idea working out in our world?
Not very
This
well.
Well,
is
it leads to a lot of
mine.
problems. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Okay.
problematic.
Now, as Albert Einstein said, so I put it in perspective. Yes, the world is an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. Even our illusions look really real, not because they're real, but because of what was used to make them.
Mhm.
That's the free will that we're freely and lovingly given. Notice that God didn't restrict how you use your thought power. Would love restrict you? I think you
Yeah.
see it's making some
By
connection.
the way, Jim, is Putin engaged in this today?
The world is but a stage, and all the men and women are actors to teach you what comes from the idea of separation.
Okay.
The Course
Okay.
describes the idea of separation as the tiny mad idea that started the Big Bang of separation.
Okay, thank you.
All right, good deal. I think we're connecting there pretty good. Let's get into another screen slide. And this is called ACIM First Impressions. And I'm going to pull that one up as a PDF and see if we can make it a little bigger here. What I have here are 5 excerpts from A Course in Miracles. They're taken kind of at random. And let's just read through these and see what some of our initial thoughts are. Carol, would you please do number 1? Oh, let me say a couple of caveats. First
Sure.
of all, these excerpts, there are a few versions of A Course in Miracles, okay? Maybe about 4 or 5, nothing like all the different versions of the Bible. But I do need to tell you that all the things I'll be showing you today are from the 3rd edition of A Course in Miracles, published by the Foundation for Inner Peace. Have y'all ever heard of the Foundation for Inner Peace?
No.
No, but I have the 3rd edition, so I'm okay.
Okay. And so there are a few other versions, but I just wanted to start with that caveat. And you'll notice the numbers here. A Course in Miracles is like the Bible, where every sentence is numbered. So when we read through these, it's okay if you skip saying the number, okay?
Okay.
Carol.
All right. How can you, who are so holy, suffer? All your past, except its beauty, is gone, and nothing is left but a blessing. I have saved all your kindness and every loving thought you ever had. I have purified them of the errors that hide their light and keep them for you in their own perfect radiance. They are beyond destruction and beyond guilt. They come from the Holy Spirit within you, and we know what God creates is eternal. You can indeed depart in peace, because I have loved you as I loved myself. You go with my blessing, and for my blessing. Hold it and share it, that it may always be ours. I place the peace of God in your heart and in your hands to hold and share. The heart is pure to hold it, and the hands are strong to give it. We cannot lose.
Thanks, Carol. And let me just, so we're on the same page, who is I? When it says, I have saved all your kindnesses and every loving thought, and I have purified them. Who's speaking? Do you know?
Me?
Yes, or Mike, just so we're together.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not sure who I is in that context.
All right.
Sounds like God.
It's Jesus speaking.
Uh-huh.
Now, if you know anything about the Bible at all, the Bible is a collection of stories with different authors, right? Like Paul and Timothy, and okay. A Course in Miracles is not different authors. It's 1,200 pages of Jesus speaking directly to you.
Okay.
So when he says I or you, we cannot lose, like the last sentence, when he says we, it means Jesus and you, okay? Helpful?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mike, go ahead.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Is Jesus I don't know how to explain this. Is Jesus in this context a part of me, so that when we say we, it means me as well as Jesus?
Yes.
Okay. Or is
Now,
it like,
let me, and this will come up later, but just so you understand how this came about, there was a professor of medical psychology at Columbia University in New York back in the mid 1960s. And she started hearing this voice. And the voice kept saying very gently but persistently, this is a course in miracles. Please take notes. So how did Jesus speak to us? Well, it came through this woman, right? This psychologist at Columbia University. So it's kind of like a channeling, or she called it an inner dictation. So she never claimed authorship of the course. She said the words were given to her by the Spirit of Jesus. Is that helpful?
Right. I've heard that before. Yes.
Okay, and we'll talk more about that as we go on. Anything else?
No, I'm okay.
Mike, do number 2.
Okay. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you, in which there are no illusions and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander into temptation, for the temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you've given, and accept but this into the minds which you created and which you love. Amen.
Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? Our holiness is yours. Listen, my Baptist church and in general, conventional Christianity always said I was a filthy, miserable sinner saved by the grace of God. Jesus says that's not true. You are as holy as your Creator, and you are as perfect as your Creator. You've gotten in trouble because you misidentify what you are. You with me?
Yeah.
I'll do number 3. The body is the central figure in the dreaming of the world. There is no dream without it, nor does the body exist without the dream in which it acts as if it were a person to be seen and be believed. The body takes the central place in every dream, which tells a story of how the body was made by other bodies and born into the world outside the body, and then it lives a little while and dies, to be united in the dust with other bodies dying like itself. And in the brief time allotted it to live, the body seeks for other bodies as its friends and enemies. The body's safety is its main concern. The body's comfort is its guiding rule. The body tries to look for pleasure and avoid the things that would be hurtful. Above all, the body tries to teach itself its pains and joys are different and can be told apart. Any first impression about Jesus's description of the body? Then let's go back to Carol for number 4. We're just doing some first impressions of this material. Carol, number 4.
The miracle comes quietly into the mind that stops an instant and is still. It reaches gently from that quiet time, and from the mind it heals in quiet, then to other minds to share its quietness. And they will join in doing nothing to prevent its radiant extensions back into the mind, which caused all minds to be. Born out of sharing, there can be no pause in time to cause the miracle delay in hastening to all unquiet minds and bringing them an instant stillness. When the memory of God returns to them, their own remembering is quiet now, and what has come to take its place will not be wholly unremembered afterwards.
So I know it's taken out of context, but let me offer this summary in lay terms.
That's good.
What you do and call thinking is overrated. Stop it. Stop thinking. Because what you call thinking requires you to use your thinker. And it's your thinker that is the mistake. It's your thinker that thinks from separation. So foundationally, everything that comes from it is not true. A lot to grasp at first, right?
Yes, very
Yep.
much so.
But
Yep.
Jesus explains it and it starts to make sense. He says, if you will shut up, you'll find that there's a guide in you that really are your real thoughts. But it gets covered over because you've been taught that thinking is the logic that you use that's based on separation and immediately becomes null and void. Therefore, you with me?
I'm mostly with you. This seems to me to be, I'm having a little trouble reconciling what you're saying with, if I get in my my car and drive the wrong way on the freeway, there probably will be a real crash. And my thinker that you're describing or alluding to is what I imagine keeps me from those crashes. And
Good
so,
point.
so I'm wondering what you mean by, doing away with the thinker. Is it in practical terms or across the board?
Thank you for that question, Mike. What Jesus says in A Course in Miracles is there is a place for that kind of logic. So you can navigate through the illusion. You have to be careful. You have to make sure that you're driving on the right side of the road. So yes, there is an application for your thinker.
Okay.
You need it in the workplace or here in the illusion. So thank you. He's not saying get rid of thinking, but he's saying that there's a whole array of things that go into thinking real thoughts that will be more helpful to you. Give you a quick example. What I do when I'm driving my car is I let the driver drive. Have you ever noticed you can be driving and you get into thought or you're listening to some music on the radio and you don't quite consciously remember how you got from point A to point B? Who was driving the car while you were listening to the radio? Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes
there's
sense.
something in you that can multitask, right?
Right.
Okay.
You can drive and listen to the radio or maybe notice the scenery, and yet there's someone in you that's driving that car, whether you're thinking about it super consciously or not. So yes, there is a place for thinking, but it's a survival skill in a world that's not real. So it does have application, but the application is limited. I'm going to stop there and ask how I'm doing with.
Oh, good. Are other people listening in here, Jim?
Pardon me?
Are other people listening in? It feels almost like it's the three of us and that's it.
It is just the three of us.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, I got a small group today.
Good.
I take who spirit sends.
Okay. All right.
Carol,
Got
why
it.
don't you finish us up with number 5 here?
What could you not accept if you but knew that everything that happens, all events, past, present, and to come, are gently planned by one whose only purpose is your good? Perhaps you have misunderstood his plan, for he would never offer pain to you. But your defenses did not let you see his loving blessing shine in every step you ever took. While you made plans for death, he led you gently to eternal life.
So does that give you the feeling that of some sort of predestination? Like you're living out a script? Like you're an actor on the stage and you're participating in a play? But perhaps you have misunderstood the outcome of this play. You think you might be hurt or killed or disabled, or you're fearful, and yet some of the things that you thought were fearful, I'm thinking about, I can't think of Nietzsche, the philosopher, the German philosopher. He says, that which does not kill you makes you stronger.
They have that saying here up in the mountains. We had a t-shirt that says, what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger, except bears. Bears will kill you.
That's a good one. This one may differ in its totality of it.
Yeah, sure.
But it's saying, you want to know, why are you here? Let me put it this way. I used to tell my kids, life is always a win-win situation when you learn while you're here. In life, you're either going to get a reward, a direct reward, or you're going to get a lesson. And lessons are very valuable too, aren't they?
Yeah.
How much have you learned from your mistakes?
Probably a lot more than I learned from my successes.
Do you see what I mean? Sometimes the lessons are more valuable than the direct rewards. That's why Jesus says, but I've been trying, and notice this, it's all happening in the dream, right?
Okay.
Thank goodness it's a dream, because some of your bad experiences that turned out to be lessons, you were never harmed in the process because you learned it in a dream. Have you ever seen the movie The Wizard of Oz?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And Dorothy had all of these adventures in what turned out to be merely a dream, right?
Right.
Yeah.
it seems so real and colorful, and after a while a bit dangerous with all these wicked witches and monkeys. But then she found out it was only a dream, didn't she? But
Yep.
it wasn't just a dream, it was a educational dream. What did Dorothy learn from her dream? It's the last line of the movie. Dorothy says, "There's no place like home."
Mhm.
She went away only to discover there's no place like home. Another analogy is from the Bible. I won't bore you with this, but it's called the parable of the prodigal son. Have either of you heard of that one?
Oh,
Yes.
yes. Yes, for sure.
And do you see that the short version is the prodigal thought he could find happiness in a faraway land, and
Yep.
it was a myth. And so he came back home and didn't leave home again because he had tried that. And there is no home someplace else. Do you see the lesson the prodigal learned is the same lesson that Dorothy learned? So what Jesus is saying is drop your defenses to this process and get on board with it. Let me continue to give you direct rewards as well as lessons. And for lessons learned, your direct rewards will increase by virtue of what you've learned. Do you see it? Do you
Yes.
see the plan of salvation evolving that you asked me about, Mike?
Well, it sounds like, well, actually, I don't get it yet, but it sounds like um, the direct rewards are also illusions.
Yes. And yet they are illusions that lead in the direction of the truth.
Okay.
They're still illusions, but at least it's going in a new direction, a
Okay.
direction where you understand why you're here. It is a perfecting process to give you wisdom commensurate with your power.
Okay.
And all the time, there's no harm to you because it's happening in a dream, in an illusion. So what? Go ahead, sir.
Does it seem to you that our acts of will are also an illusion? That our
All the
choices?
things. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just wondering, my impression is that at least sometimes I'm actually making a choice about things, like choosing to participate here today.
Yes, sir.
So I'm wondering, how do you understand that in terms of, well, is it just an illusion that I have that choice of will?
No, it's not an illusion that you have a choice. And it is that very thing called choice. And of course, in miracles, Jesus calls it right mindedness versus wrong mindedness. Both of them are perceptions, which mean that they're illusions. But one illusion leads you back toward the truth, and the other choice makes the illusion deeper and takes us farther away from our true reality. Let me ask
Okay.
it this way. At the rate we're going, how long will it take to have world peace? Do you see
Um,
what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
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 You can't fix this because it's based on the wrong thing. It can't work because it's based on a lie of separation. And the truth is, we are one. The truth is, you are your brother's keeper. The truth is, you are your brother. So, how can you attack yourself? We doing okay? I'm
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
carried away here.
It's
That's
all
good.
right.
I'm
All right.
enjoying that.
So
Yeah.
here's some first impressions, and you can see it gets pretty deep, doesn't it? So,
Yeah.
Carol, I can understand why it would seem a bit not understandable at first. But having said that, and if we're in good shape here, let's go on to our next item. And boy, I got to find it myself here. Bear with me. I lost my place. Okay. We did first impressions. So we're ready for the sections that talk about what is A Course in Miracles. And first, I'd like to do a screen share that just talks a little bit about how A Course in Miracles came about, how it's here. Let me just show it to you. That's probably the simplest. What is A Course in Miracles? What is A Course in Miracles? First published in 1976. A Course in Miracles was authored by the Spirit of Jesus Christ and transcribed by Helen Schuffman, a professor of clinical psychology at Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center. Helen said that Jesus revealed A Course in Miracles to her through a process called inner dictation. Jesus's inner dictations to Helen went on for 7 years, from approximately 1965 to 1972. And just to reiterate, Helen started having these dreams, and then she started hearing this voice that I told you about before. The voice kept saying, "This is A Course in Miracles, please take notes." Now, remember, she was a clinical psychologist, a woman of science. The other thing is she had tried a lot of different religions in her life, but by this time she was an atheist. So you can imagine she was a little anxious when this voice that revealed itself as Jesus, she started hearing the voice. So she was a little unsettled. You can understand that, right? So what
Very
she
much like St. Paul.
yeah. So what she did was she confided in her boss. His name was Bill Thetford. And the short version is Bill finally said to Helen, "I got an idea. The voice keeps saying the same thing. Write this down, take notes. So why don't you try doing what it says and maybe it'll leave you alone? So Helen said, yeah, that's a good idea. So she used like a stenographer pad and wrote it down in shorthand. And she would bring this stuff in to Bill and he would type it up.
Uh-huh.
And so she said, okay, to the voice. And the voice talked to her for 7 years and she wrote it down and Bill typed it up. And the results is called A Course in Miracles. So you see why it's like she couldn't take credit as being the author because it was an inner dictation that came through her. A Course, any questions?
No.
A Course in Miracles is Christian in its orientation, but rises completely above any discussion of specific religions. Over 2 million copies of A Course in Miracles are in print worldwide, including translations into 27 languages.
Thank you.
A Course in Miracles consists of 3 volumes or books that collectively cover more than 1,200 pages. A unique feature of A Course in Miracles is the book called the Student Workbook, which contains 365 daily lessons. Carol, have you seen any of those course
Yes.
lessons? Okay.
Yeah.
So there are 365 daily lessons. So if you're serious to actually do this course, just to get through the daily lessons is a 1-year commitment. So it really is a course.
Okay.
A Course in Miracles is not a cult. It's not a religion. It doesn't represent any specific religious denomination, and it's not supported by any ministerial hierarchy. As I've said before, for many, A Course in Miracles offers a practical, non-religious, non-political way to experience God's reality and his peace that passes all understanding. And when you start coming into that experience, it's hard for me to explain, but you'll know it when that experience comes to you. How are we doing here, my friends?
Good. Doing good.
All right, all right. So let me show you this video, okay? It
Okay.
runs like 18 minutes. Let's take a look at the video, and after that, we'll do our intermission. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna see if we can get this going. There we go. Takes a minute because we're running Zoom also.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll be up here in a minute. Come on, guy.
Hey, have you heard of A Course?
So I'm gonna pause just so I can go to full screen.
Okay.
Okay.
Where's my full screen? Come on. Anyhow, let's just get started here.
Course in Miracles, and you always want to know more about it, well, stick around because today it's all about A Course in Miracles.
I have no idea why I can't go to the screen.
Hey, if you've been on any kind of spiritual path for any amount of time, you must have run across either references to or quotes from A Course in Miracles, either from Marianne Williamson or Eckhart Tolle or Neil Donald Walsh. All of those incredible teachers reference A Course in Miracles consistently and always. And there is a really good reason why they do. We're going to talk about that today. But before we do that, I want to say welcome to my channel. My name is Max Ryan. I'm a spiritual teacher. I'm also intuitive. And this channel is all about helping you to really trust the truth of who you are, gain tools and understandings of true spiritual awakening. So if that's something that you're interested in, then please, I'd ask you to subscribe if it feels right to you. I'd really appreciate that. And hit the bell for sure so you get the notifications. All right, so here's the deal. Let's talk. I have been a student and a teacher of A Course in Miracles for 38 years. I know, you're like, how old is that guy? Well, I was introduced to A Course in Miracles when I was about 18 years old, and I know this isn't really about me because I want to get into this, but just kind of give you a background that I've been studying this for a long time, and there's a reason why. I was taken to a group meeting when I was in college. A friend of mine said, we talk about spiritual stuff, and it's this woman's apartment, and it's really great, and so I went one night, and it was an apartment in West Hollywood, and it was Marianne Williamson. Before she became Marianne Williamson. She hadn't even finished that Return to Love yet. So from there on, I started to study and I started to read and I started to work and volunteer. This is during the AIDS crisis. And so it captured my heart. And before that, I had studied a lot of spiritual paths, such as Buddhism, and I was raised Catholic, and Wiccan philosophies, all different things I had studied for a very long time. And then when the Course in Miracles came into my life, something in me said, oh, this is it. For me. So I'm just going to show you. This is my copy of A Course in Miracles. So you can see it's being held together by duct tape, and it is highlighted all over the place, and it's well loved, as they say. And it is because I refer to it every single day. I teach it, I refer to it, I practice it, and so let's just get into it. So the first thing I want to tell you about A Course in Miracles is A Course in Miracles is not a religion. It is not a religion. People from all religions and no religions practice A Course in Miracles. You know, Marianne Williamson is actually Jewish, and she practices it. You know, Christians practice it, and people that don't follow any organized religion can follow the principles of A Course in Miracles. So let's talk about it. A Course in Miracles is a spiritual mind training. It works very much on our psychology so that we can end up finding the inner peace that we know we have. A Course in Miracles is really a non-duality teaching, meaning that non-duality is all about there is only love, there is only God, there is only peace. Everything that is not of that is an illusion. Now I know that that's really hard to accept when you look around and you see wars and you see arguments and you see craziness in the world. From the Course in Miracles point of view, what we're trying to do is we're trying to see that all of those things are projections of our own making. All of those things are projections of our own making from what the Course would call the ego or the egoic mind. All of us have an egoic mind, that is for sure. And what the Course is trying to help us do is to actually, when you have an ego mind, and then you have your true self, which is yourself that's always connected to love, always connected to God, and is never, ever, ever split. what we're trying to do in the Course in Miracles, what's helping us to do, is start to little by little shift us so that we have the real experience of peace. It has one goal, and that's true inner peace. And I don't know who would ever argue with that goal, the goal of true inner peace. And that is why you come to something like the Course in Miracles. And I will say, the Course in Miracles is not for everyone. It's definitely not for everybody. But if you feel a pull towards it, like many people do, I would suggest that you keep following it. Keep following, because there's a lot in here. There is a lot in this book, obviously. Now, the book is separated in basically 3 main sections. There's a text at the beginning, and then there's the workbook for students in the middle, and then there's something called the manual for teachers. So the text is very dense, and it's amazing. It's incredible, and it will change all your perceptions. What we're trying to do is change perception, right? Because one of the biggest things in the Course in Miracles is that we're taught that we're giving everything the meaning it has for us. So if we can change the meaning, that's a miracle. When we have a shift in our perception, that's a miracle. When someone that used to be an enemy, you now see through the eyes and the heart of love, that's a miracle. There's a lot of principles of miracles, but the main one for our purposes today is that it's all about shifting your perception. And I know that you know that, but what the Course in Miracles does, by doing the lessons of the workbook, you slowly start to see the world, yourself, your family, situations, negativity, all that stuff. It all starts to change. And it's so beautifully done. It's 365 lessons in the workbook. So every day you're asked to just read the lesson. That's all you're asked to do, just read the lesson. You're not asked to do anything about it, but there are instructions in each lesson. But the beauty of A Course in Miracles in the workbook is that before you even know it, you start to have a different relationship to everything. Because it's changing everything that you see, because it's changing you, because you are the seer. Do you understand? Because you are the seer, you're seeing things very differently. Where once you saw evil and insanity and craziness, you can still see it, but you're seeing it from a completely different point of view. You're over here now, you're not here in it. It helps you to have real objectivity so you don't lose the truth of who you are, which is your connection with God, source, love, okay? That is the main objective of A Course in Miracles, is to help us to have peace by understanding that we can either extend in love or project with the ego. Now, let me say this about the ego, because the ego comes up quite a bit in A Course in Miracles. I want you to think of the ego is the part of you, the part of us, that thinks without love. Take a deep breath. And if you really start to look at your thoughts, you really start to look at your perceptions, you really start to look at how you see yourself, this is really important, you're like, wow, I'm looking through the eyes of judgment. I'm looking through the eyes of vengeance. I'm looking through the eyes of inadequacy. I'm looking through the eyes of guilt. I'm looking through the eyes of anger. I'm looking through the eyes, does that make sense? But when are you looking through the eyes of love? Right? Love is the most powerful source and vibration that there is. And so in A Course in Miracles, you're taught to keep looking at your enemy through the eyes of love. Look at yourself through the eyes of love. Because as you see yourself, you will see outside, right? You think you are screwed up, you're going to see all screwed up people around you. In that way, it is very law of attraction. Because your perceptions are dictating everything that you see. we can't go into, in future videos, we're gonna break down some principles, but in this video, I'm giving you an overview, okay? And please, if you have experience or questions with the Course in Miracles, because a lot of people do, and this is the God's honest truth. So many people come to me, because I've been doing it for so long, and they say, oh yeah, I had that book, and I opened it up, and I couldn't do it, and I put it in the back of my bookshelf, and I never went back to it. But then something called them to it. That might be you. So really, truly, put in your comments down below, what's your experience with the Course in Miracles? And any questions, I'm completely open, and I will answer the questions below. Okay, so that's the overview of what the Course is, basically. Now, there's a couple things you need to know. One thing you need to know is that the people that follow the Course and have been working with the Course and students of the Course, we believe that this material is channeled by Jesus. You don't even need to ask me why, but it does definitely go into all of the Jesus story. But it's the Jesus story in a way that's never been told before. And it's the Jesus story told, and if you get freaked out by me just saying that right, well, just hold on. Because it's done from a universal truth principle. It is not condemning, there's no dogma in this at all. So it's not like the Bible in that way at all. It's working with psychology. And so it's kind of like Jesus is saying, hey, you know what? This is what happened here, but this is, I mean, what they said here, but this is what I really meant. This is what you get over and over and over in there. Of course. And it does use traditional Christic or Christian terminology. And sometimes for some people, that's kind of like it's hard for them to deal with. But if you can get past that and feel what it's doing to you and how it's shifting you for your spiritual awakening, if you can get past that, you will have an incredible experience. Your life will change. Your life will change. There's no doubt about it. Because you will change. You will change. Your whole relationship to yourself will change, right? So there's the Jesus thing. There's the Jesus thing. So Jesus is okay with me, and I think Jesus is okay with a lot of people. So it's like there's Buddha, there's Jesus, there's Muhammad, there's all the great, incredible truth paths and truth seekers, truth leaders throughout time, and Jesus is one of them, right? Okay. So if in future videos, or if I refer and I say he says or he, that's Jesus, right? So we believe that. Now, before we end, I want to tell you how it came to be. This is a huge document. It's huge. There's thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of words in this, and it is detailed and huge. Can I say huge again? It's huge. It's huge. So I'm going to briefly tell you, because people say, well, if it's Jesus, then he write it, whatever. The short version of the story is that in the 1960s, late 1960s, early 70s, there was a woman named Helen Schuckman and a guy named Bill Thetford, and they worked at the psychology department at Columbia University in New York City, right? And they had to work together, and they did not get along. It was like oil and water, as they say. It was like rough. And I guess Helen Schuckman was a really intense person. And Bill was definitely more subservient. But they were in this place where they couldn't get along. And they got to this place where they had to work together, and something happened where they were like, something's got to change, there's got to be a different way, we have to figure this out. And something shifted. And Helen, who is a Jewish atheist, she went home and she started to have dreams. And she started to have dreams of a book, and the whole story is too complicated. But what happened was she came back and she started telling Bill, I feel like something's trying to tell me to write something. And he was like, what? He wasn't like, what? But what he did is he said, listen, well, why don't you just write down what it's saying? So you would think of this as channeling. Back in those days, they didn't talk about channeling. They didn't talk about any of that stuff, but she had this like, whoa. So she got out those big old school yellow legal pads and she wrote this whole book out by hand. And she wrote it and wrote it and wrote it and wrote it. And in the morning, she would bring these to the office and he would transcribe it. And it went on for about 3 or 4 years, something like that. And finally, she knew when it was done. She knew when it was done. There's a moment in the course where she was like, it's done. And that was it. And as Bill was working on this, and they worked in the psychology department, remember that, he was like, there's something here. She didn't want anything to do with it in general. And he was like, this can help people. There's something in here. And he started putting it together, and he started to put it together and, you know, use the old mimeograph copies and everything. And little by little, around upstate New York, they started to tell their friends about it, and he started to tell some psychologists about it. And then out in California, they got a couple of copies, and they started to apply it to people's lives and their life, and their whole life started changing. They started becoming incredibly peaceful. Everything started changing for them. And that's how it came to be. That's how it came to be. And then it really took off, you know, I mean, took off in the 70s, in the mid 70s. And originally this was 3 different books. They put it all into one volume now. But that's how it came to be. So let's just review before we wrap up, because I want to keep you all day. The Course in Miracles is a spiritual mind training. It is not a religion. People from all religions and no religions can practice the principles of A Course in Miracles. If it is something that you feel drawn to, then I would definitely suggest that you check it out. And I'm going to be doing more videos, and I have more videos here already, but I'm going to do more in-depth ones. And it's a spiritual mind training, and it takes you from an orientation of fear to love. These are my first tattoos. Fear to love. And it develops your trust in who you are, and it completely changes your relationship with what you think you are, what you think you are. Because remember, the ego is telling you what you think you are, what you think you are. And so what it does is little by little, it starts to give you a whole new, truer relationship with yourself. So, like I said, we'll have many more videos on the Course in Miracles. I'll take out individual principles and we'll talk about those. But please, if you have questions about it or comments about it, I'm here for you. Put them in the comment section below. I'll definitely answer them. And look at my channel. There is Course in Miracles stuff already, but I'm going to do updated new ones soon. Okay? All right, friends. If any of
Patreon.
Patreon. Reon.
Max Ryan is the guy's name.
Max.
Hey, you guys all right there?
Yeah, we're still surviving here, I think.
Were you trying to get who that was on the video? Max?
Yeah, we got it. We got it down.
Okay.
He's Max, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So was that video helpful? I thought it paired nicely with what I've been saying. And for me, it was interesting with his Marianne Williamson comments and his beat up, well-used book like me. So you see, I'm not the only one, right?
I got it.
Anyhow, if it's okay with you, let's take a 10-minute break.
That sounds good.
And here in Michigan, it's 3:35. What time is it in Colorado?
1:35.
Yep.
For 2 hours.
Yeah. So I'm going to go blank screen. I'll put a little music on maybe, and I'll see you at 1:45.
That sounds good.
Take a little break, my friends. I'll see you soon.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, yeah, I needed to get up about a half an hour ago.
I know, I could tell.
Whew.
Hey, is anybody there?
Well, Jim,
Yeah.
the illusion of me is now here.
All right. Well, that's good enough for our purposes today. Where's your
Carol,
lovely wife? Is she?
she's getting a cup of tea. She'll be here in about half a minute.
All right. Well, listen, a cup of tea always goes very well with this workshop.
Great.
The
Great.
thing about A Course in Miracles, again, I've been doing this 20 years, and the whole thing is counterintuitive. It's like you want to do a good job studying this course, so you want to put a lot of effort into it and you want to make it go at your pace. Let me tell you, this whole thing goes faster the more you relax into it. Do you see how you don't strive into it, you don't make it happen. It happens faster if you take your hands off of it. By the way, if you're relaxing and taking your hand off of it, it's a more relaxing, joyful experience than if it's another thing for you to do or accomplish. I gotta do it. No, let it do it to you instead of you trying to do it. If that if that whole thing makes sense, right?
Yeah, it does.
Let me show you our next screen slide. We're almost done here.
Okay.
And this is a slide entitled Tour of the Course.
Okay.
And so what I'm trying to accomplish here is to give you an idea of how A Course in Miracles is put together as a teaching tool.
Okay.
Again, a reminder that what I'm showing you is from the Foundation for Inner Peace, 3rd edition, the one I believe you said you had, Carol.
Correct.
So in terms of how the book is organized, it starts out with a preface to the book. The preface explains the origin and purpose of A Course in Miracles. We've talked about it. The video kind of explained it. And the preface tells a story about Helen Schuckman and Bill Thetford and what happened. It's in 3 sections: how it came, what the course is, and what the course says. It's 7 pages long, but I brought you an excerpt from it. And can we do a ladies first? And Carol, have you read this from the preface?
Sure. All right. The curriculum the course proposes is carefully conceived and is explained step by step at both the theoretical and practical levels. It emphasizes application rather than theory and experience rather than theology. It specifically states that a universal theology is impossible, but a universal experience is not only possible, but necessary. Although Christian in statement, the course deals with universal spiritual themes. It emphasizes that it is but one version of the universal curriculum. There are many others, this one differing from them only in form. They are led to God in the end. They all lead to God in the end.
You know, let me ask you this. It says curriculum. What's a curriculum?
Of course.
Basically,
It's a course of study.
right.
So if you want to be a doctor, there's certain courses that you have to master, right?
Correct.
In order
Yep.
to graduate, or if you want to be an engineer or a computer programmer. So this is a universal curriculum. It's going on everywhere all the time, but you may not have known it. One of the things, Jesus, I remember from being a Bible student is that Jesus says many times, let those who have eyes see and those with ears hear. And what he's saying is, if you're not ready to see this, you won't. And if you're not ready to hear it, you won't. But let me put it this way. Have you ever bought a new car and noticed all the other cars on the road like your car, like your new car?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Almost
Where
every time.
were those cars before?
They
were
were
there.
They were there, but you didn't have an interest in it at that time. But
Right.
now,
Exactly.
because it's more relevant to you, you notice more things related to it.
Sure.
So do you see how your eyes are opened up and you'll start? When I was young, I used to listen to, there was a band called Earth, Wind and Fire. I love that group. Have you ever heard of them?
That was
Oh,
way
yeah.
before our time, Jim.
Oh, I'm sure. Or the Beatles music, All We Need Is Love. And I used to think they were entertainers, but as my eyes have been open and I listen to their music, like who's Imagine, who's the singer? He was from the Beatles. He wrote a song, Imagine There's No Heaven, right?
Uh-huh.
John Lennon.
John Lennon.
John Lennon. And I used to think that was some cool music, but were these guys preachers? And I thought they were entertainers back then. So when they says it's a universal curriculum, there are many others differing in form. And if you listen to the message of the Beatles or John Lennon or Buddha or Martin Luther King, you'll start to say, wait a minute, maybe these guys are saying the same thing. I never knew that before. So that's what I mean about this universal curriculum that's been there all the time. I just didn't notice it before. One more thing and we'll move on. The word theology. Do you know what theology is?
Yes.
And
Yes,
what
I
is
do.
it, sir?
Well, technically it's a study of God.
Correct. Now, here's the issue and why Jesus says a universal theology is impossible. How can you possibly study all that is? Because as soon as you start to cubbyhole it, as soon as you start trying to explain it, your little mind can't handle all of it. And so its meaning is immediately diminished when you try to put labels.
Yeah.
I have
So-
a different thought about that.
Yes.
But isn't it impossible also to have a universal theology or the universal study of God, because everybody's perception of God is very, very different.
Exactly. You've read, we're in total agreement, Carol.
All
Okay.
right.
So,
So,
in miracle, go ahead. I'm cutting you off. Sorry.
No, I'm not. I was finished. Go ahead.
So, A Course in Miracles takes a different strategy in getting to its goal. There's 1,200 pages of words, but guess what? The words is not what you're looking for. The words are simply enough to help you meet the conditions to have you start having the experiences. And it is the experiences that will teach you A Course in Miracles. I tell my students, they say, well, Jim, I'm sorry I wasn't able to meet the study group last week and I apologize something. I said, that's okay. Take it easy, because A Course in Miracles is not in this book. The
Sure.
book is only preparing you to start having the experiences. And what you'll find is in your daily life, it'll start constantly reminding you of stuff that Jesus says when you see it in your everyday life. So you start seeing things differently, from a different perception. You remember Max talking about that?
Yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
So it is the experiences that are the goal. Don't try and make this into an intellectual study. That's
Yeah.
not what it's about. The words are just enough to get to the threshold of having the experience. And it is the experience that will convince you of its reality. Does that make sense, Kana?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we start with a preface, and now we're in book number 1, the text, it's called. The text presents the theory of A Course in Miracles. It's 31 chapters long, covering 669 pages. And as Max said, it's dense. It's dense. Did I say dense?
It's dense.
Yeah. So, Mike, could you read the introduction to the text?
Sure. This is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. The only time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course, therefore, can be summed up very simply in this way: nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
Okay.
Comments?
Well, I think it's an interesting point of view that, I mean, what strikes me is that the emphasis is on experience, trying to open you up to the experience. And I know, when I've studied Buddhism, which is not too far off from some of the things you're talking about.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The illusion of duality and the illusion that
Yes.
that I'm separate. And I get it that the more I have thought about that, it's not just reading it and memorizing it and trying to keep repeating it to myself. But once I kind of get that concept, yeah, you do start to see it more. You see a lot of connections that you wouldn't have seen before.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
You know, and so you have to live it to really have it take hold or not, you see?
Yeah. Yeah.
It says that the course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. Lesson 67 in the workbook, the title of the lesson is Love Created Me Like Itself. Now, we think of love as an emotion, just a part of our lives. But that lesson says, love created me like itself. If that's true, what are you? I mean, what are you? Starts with L. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Love is not a part of you. You literally are love. First of all, it's hard to conceive when you think of yourself as a body, but does it become more palatable when you think of yourself as a spiritual being? If love created you like itself, then if that's true, you say, well, I'm love. And my next question is, when are you love? My answer is always. If that's true, who told you you could love sometime and hate sometime? Who told you you had the prerogative to do that? It's not true. The ego said that you don't have to be what you are all the time. You can pick and choose when you want to be it. But if this isn't too deep, the deep undercurrent of anxiety that we feel, the feeling that something's not quite right, that the shoe's gonna fall, we're fearful, it's because we're fakes, and it produces guilt.
That we're fake?
If you're love, how can you be it sometime if that is your natural inheritance? Do you see what I mean? Here, give you another example. The world teaches the best you can do is see the glass as half full versus half empty. Who set that up? Either way, it's not whole.
Right.
It's a trick. It's a deception. I am love all the time. And when I get into that as my perception of living, I'll still have crap that comes up. There'll still be wars. and I will respond to those things. But I've learned a whole lot of loving ways to respond compared to how I used to respond to stuff. I don't smack people anymore. I don't say derogatory things about people anymore. I still live my life, pay my bills, go to work, do all those things, but it's from a different perspective now.
Uh-huh.
And so what I'm trying to do, even in this world, is to operate from the perception that I am love itself. And it makes my life, to my surprise, I don't get demolished or run over, or people don't walk all over me like a wimp. But still, love is powerful. Love is strong. And if you let him, the Holy Spirit will show you that and replace your other protective mechanisms with a new perspective that works much better.
Uh-huh.
The opposite of love is fear. That's like saying the opposite of light is darkness, or the opposite of good is evil. And we give power to both of those. And what Jesus is saying is, there is no evil because love has no opposite. And you say that's impossible, but if you give it a chance, he'll show you that it's not impossible, even in this world. This world is a lesson to teach us and help us remember what we truly are. So it doesn't aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. But what I do want to do is, if I take away all of your misconceptions about what reality is, I don't have to make love to fill the void. It's always there. We are just covering it up so it can't rise to our awareness.
Uh-huh.
It's like that statue of David. Who is it? Michelangelo or somebody that did that sculpture of David. And they said, how did you make this beautiful sculpture? And he responded, oh, it was always there in that block of stone. I just had to chip away all the stuff off of it.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
then it rises. You see what I mean?
Yeah. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What is the source or the origin of the ego?
Here, let me start with this. It's from chapter 27 in the text. It goes, into eternity where all was one, there arose a tiny mad idea at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh. And it goes something like, having taken the thought seriously and applying our thought power to it, we manifested it. But it was a crazy idea, but because we took it seriously, it manifested. Remember free will?
Yeah.
But when you have a power as powerful as we have, you can't just be using it all willy-nilly. If you want to see the results of the tiny mad idea, turn on the news, look out your door, look at the perils of a reality based on the tiny mad idea. Why is the world so crazy? Because it's based on a mistake. It doesn't work. It'll never work. Keep putting your resources in it. And here, let me give you a quick idea. If you knew that everyone was love, regardless of their misperceptions about themselves, but if we were all enlightened and we knew our brother as ourself, what would you need police for? What are you going to do? Attack yourself? Does that make sense anymore? So then what do you need armies for? What do you need the military and industrial complex for? And what could you be doing with the resources instead? You know, in the Bible, in the book of Revelations, it talks about turning your swords into plowshares or something like that. You heard that?
That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Okay, let me ask it a different way. Same intent, different metaphor. When's the last time you bought film for your camera? When's the last time you saw a telephone booth?
Yeah.
Was there a fight about it and the phone booth lost? No, it simply got replaced with something else, and there's no need for it anymore. So if you understand that you and your brothers and sisters are one, what are you going to do? Go attack yourself? Does that even make common sense anymore? So do you see how the light of understanding, merely understanding, will heal the world? We're not
Got a long way to
separate. Go ahead, Carol, say that again.
I said, we've got a long ways to go with the rest of the world because, you know,
Yeah,
right now,
using our
there's a-
methods. But let me say this and think about this. There's no correlation between how much time it takes to nurture a flower. You know how you plant that seed and you water it and you watch it, and then finally you get a little thing peeking out. And that took a long time and it continued. And one day you went to work, and when you came home, there was a whole bouquet of blooms.
right.
So don't judge the blooming on how long it's taking. Does it?
All right. That's a good thought.
All right. And so those things that you call, oh, and it happened so suddenly. It didn't happen suddenly. It's just, it came into your awareness all of a sudden. The process was all in place, and one day that sucker's gonna bloom.
Okay.
So there's still hope, my friends, okay? Continuing on, let me do the next one. We're starting the workbook for students. Now remember, the text was the A Course in Miracles thought system, the theory. The workbook is putting the theory into practice or the application. The workbook for students is in two parts. There's a different format, but it's a total of 365 lessons. In the course, it covers 488 pages. And I just thought I'd bring a couple of samples from the workbook lessons. Lesson 48. The title of this lesson is There is Nothing to Fear. The idea for today simply states a fact. It is not a fact to those who believe in illusions, but illusions are not facts. In truth, there is nothing to fear. It is very easy to recognize this, but it is very difficult to recognize it for those who still want illusions to be true. Jesus says today's practice periods will be very short, very simple, and very frequent. Merely repeat the idea as often as possible. There is nothing to fear. You can use it with your eyes open at any time and in any situation. It is strongly recommended, however, that you take a minute or so whenever possible to close your eyes and repeat, "There's nothing to fear," slowly to yourself several times. And it is particularly important that you use the idea immediately should anything disturb your peace of mind. The presence of fear is a sure sign that you are trusting in your own strength. The awareness that there is nothing to fear shows that somewhere in your mind, though not necessarily in a place you recognize as yet, you have remembered God and let his strength take the place of your weakness. The instant you are willing to do this, there is indeed nothing to fear. What do you think? Comments? Speechless.
Yeah, I think that I think that requires well, a few things. It requires that you keep in mind that the point of view that you are spirit, because I can tell you, if we lived in Los Angeles for several decades, and one thing I wouldn't do is go to South Central LA about 2 a.m.
Exactly.
Why? Yeah, because I had some things to fear there. There were some wonderful people in South Central, but that's not what I was worried about if I was there. So point is, I guess it's a natural instinct if I'm concerned about my physical well-being.
Yes, sir.
To say, oh, there's no way I'm going there. Now, the other thing that occurs to me is I'm not so sure that my point of view will alter what actually is going to happen physically in this world. So I could say, I mean, some of the early martyrs attest to that. They absolutely believed in God, and they were killed for their beliefs.
Yes.
And they really did get killed.
Yeah.
But they did it in a spirit of peace and joy sometimes, even when they were tortured, because they held on to that belief that it was
yes,
God was really with them.
And so their body was killed, and yet then you can take consolation when you understand that you're not a body, and you go, I'm so glad I'm not a body because that body got killed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, that is an opening or a solace. The more you understand you're not a body, then do you see how fear levels immediately go down? Because regardless of what happens to your body's not you anymore. So you make a great point. The more you can separate from your identification as a body, the more confident you can start to be in this statement that Jesus says is a fact. By the way, in A Course in Miracles, Jesus talks about why he manifested on this earth plane. And he says, I'm just shortening this, okay? He says, listen, you all have been taught that I came into the world to pay for your sins, right? You've heard that, right?
Yeah.
He
Oh,
said,
yeah.
I didn't come to pay for your sins. You have no sins. What I came to show you, what I came to demonstrate is that you can't be killed. What you are is eternal, and I'll show you. Let me demonstrate it. I'll come and let you crucify my body, but let me ask you this. I've been asking audiences for years, is Jesus dead?
Not if you believe in the resurrection.
And yet everybody still talks about him and stuff, right? So what he was trying to show us is that what we are can't be killed. So take my body and in 3 days I'll rise again. And he did, right? If you believe in the resurrection. But do you see how our traditional churches have come short of what the real message was? They say Jesus came to die for our sins. And I was very grateful for that. So can you imagine my elation when Jesus himself in the Course says, I didn't come to die for your sins. You don't have any sins. The fact that you think that you can be made imperfect and made into this little small thing you call a body, yeah, the body can sin and make mistakes. But again, guys, you're not a body. So what we're gonna do is here's the thing, you realize even when you accept you're not a body, now the question becomes, well, what do I do with this body? There's nothing wrong with a body unless you think it's you. So here's the plan. Jesus will turn your body into a communication device for the Holy Spirit. I tell my course students, my body now is simply my work uniform. It helps me to infiltrate and allow the Holy Spirit. Can you imagine if a disembodied voice started talking to you and trying to teach you something? Well, it would have a hard time, wouldn't it? Just to catch up with you from running. Oh, a disembodied voice. when you're talking to people that are so fearful, you can't just tell them the truth, even if it's for their own good. They won't hear you. So one of the things you got to do is bring down the fear level. So when this transformation happens in you, keep your body, because your friends are think, oh, that's just Mike. Oh, that's just Carol or Jim. You look like a regular person still. They have no idea of the transformation that's gone on the inside. So your body
Yeah, that's true.
becomes a communication device for your teacher, the Holy Spirit. Have you ever heard let go and let God?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Requires a lot of trust to do it all the time, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yep.
That's what we're working toward, letting go and letting God fulfill his or her plan for salvation. Okay?
Okay.
I need
Yeah.
a reader because I brought one more. Are we back to Carol?
Sure.
Yeah, we are.
The light of the world brings peace to every mind through my forgiveness. How holy are you who have the power to bring peace to every mind? How blessed are you who can learn to recognize the means of letting this be done through you? What purpose could you have that would bring you greater happiness? You are indeed the light of the world with such a function. The Son of God looks to you for his redemption. It is yours to give him, for it belongs to you. Accept no trivial purpose or meaning or meaningless desire in its place, or you will forget your function and leave the Son of God in hell. This is no idle request that is being asked of you. You are being asked to accept salvation that it may be yours to give. Recognize the importance of this function. We will be happy to remember it very often today. Okay.
Now, lesson 61, 2 lessons before this one. The title of that lesson is I am the light of the world. Now, I remember the first time I read this lesson years ago, and I'm going, I am the light of the world. Wait, I know you're not talking to me. And yet Jesus says, Jim, I am talking to you. You are the light of the world because you are one with me. We're all from the same family. I'm Jesus Christ. You're Jim Christ. That's Carol Christ. Do you see we're all Jesus? Now, my church taught me Jesus was the light of the world, and my highest goal would be to follow Jesus. Jesus was at the top of the heap, right? And all I was supposed to do is follow him. Can you imagine when Jesus says to me, you are the light of the world? That's a lot different from being a filthy, miserable sinner, isn't it? And yet,
Yeah, I remember. Well, he also said, I'm the vine and you're the branches. That's in the same line there, I think.
yes, sir. So how else can we save the world? Here's the strategy. I'm going to let the Holy Spirit use my eyes, my arms, my hands, my feet, my legs to bring this about within the world of illusion. God has a plan. He did not leave us helpless here. And so the light of the world, who is that again now? Oh, his name is Mike or Carol. You're the
Right.
light of the world, and you'll bring peace to every mind by forgiving the illusion that there can be anything else, or rather that you can be anything else but what you are. And what is that again, my friends? Starts with L.
Love.
It's
Love.
not an emotion. It's literally the name of the spirit that you are. And so have you heard the word, have you ever heard of non-dualism?
Yeah. Yep.
That one I
What
haven't
the
heard.
Course
Okay.
teaches is there's only one thing, not two things, not five things, not 500 different things, not a zillion different things. Perfection is one. Perfection is whole. And when you start breaking it off into little pieces, you start breaking up its power. I ask my students, what has more power, the ocean or a drop of water in the ocean? Which one has more power? Sound like a trick
The drop.
question?
The drop has more power than the ocean because the drop is cumulative. It's only
Well,
one
now
person.
you're making
It's
it
only one-
into more than a drop. Let me
Okay.
just say it this
Well,
way.
the real answer to that is that there is no drop.
Excellent. The point I'm making, though, is that they both have equal power when they're together. But if you were at the
Okay.
you get your little bucket and you go and scoop a bucket of ocean water and bring it on the shore so you can have your own private ocean. What happens to the power when you separate it from source? It loses
Well,
its
it has,
power. You see
Yeah.
what I
That
mean?
dissipates. Yep.
So do you
Yep.
see that
Interesting.
our mistake is believing we're separate? How that makes us each powerless and alone and afraid? But if I could tell you in truth that we're all one and that we are indeed the children of love, is that okay if I substitute the word love for God? We always say God is love. Is that okay?
sure.
Now we got a whole lot of power. I'll do one more, and boy, I need to move on. Take a symphony orchestra. It's got all of these wonderful individual players. I go down to the Detroit Symphony Orchestra a lot. They are amazing individuals. But when that conductor comes out and taps the podium and they all start playing the same song together, a synergistic effect occurs and a whole new instrument is created called the symphony orchestra. and none of its individual parts can make that sound by itself. Is that a good analogy?
Yeah, it's a good
Excellent.
one.
All right. So I'm not going to beat that up anymore. We've got a little bit more to cover. I want to tell you about the third book in A Course in Miracles, which is indeed the smallest section. It's at the back. You might even miss it. The workbook was 488 pages, the text 669. So this is only 92 pages, and it's written in a question and answer format. And what Jesus does here is answer questions about what it's like to be a teacher of God, should you choose to be one. So the motivation for the text and the workbook for students is to let you see this works so that he can recruit you into being one of the teachers of God, should you choose to be one. And the manual, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying that's interesting. Yeah.
The manual addresses some of the questions that are likely to come up. Now, there are like 29 questions and answers. Here's just a sample. Who are God's teachers? Who are their pupils? Are changes going to be required in your life situation? How is peace possible in this world? And again, this is a partial list, but I wanted to share one of the excerpts from the manual for teachers. It's part Roman numeral 6. In one of them, it's called "What are the characteristics of the teacher of God?" And Jesus says there are 10 characteristics. So I just pick one of them, okay? So Mike, is it your turn? Let's do this one. We're getting near the end here.
Okay. Defenselessness. God's teachers have learned how to be simple. They have no dreams that need defense against the truth. They do not try to make themselves. Their joy comes from their understanding who created them. And does what God created need defense? No one can become an advanced teacher of God until he fully understands that defenses are but foolish guardians of mad illusions. The more grotesque the dream, the fiercer and more powerful its defenses seem to be. Yet, when the teacher of God finally agrees to look past them, he finds that nothing was there. Slowly, at first, he lets himself be undeceived, but he learns faster than his trust increases. It is not danger that comes when defenses are laid down. It is safety, it is peace, it is joy, and it is God.
Do you remember in the Bible about Daniel in the furnace in there on that? And they would not bow down, and so they threw him in the fire and all of that. And lo and behold, they looked in the furnace, and there's Daniel, Meshach, Abednego, whatever. I'm not saying that right, but they were just walking around in the fire.
Yeah.
Boy, that took a lot of trust that nothing would harm them. So they didn't put up any defenses. Did Jesus defend himself from the crucifixion?
No.
That took a lot of trust not to try and protect yourself from getting nailed to a cross. But
Yes.
that's the kind of trust that we're developing here. You come into a dark room, you see shadows, it looks fearful, and then you turn on the lights and you see it was just benign objects when you turn on the light. You know that song, I can see clearly now, the clouds have gone. You know that song?
Yep.
So what we're doing is opening our eyes so we can really see. And as Max said in the video, it's a masterful process, the way that A Course in Miracles handles this. I just wanted to, in the interest of being complete, the manual for teachers also includes a supplemental section called clarification of terms. And Carol, if you haven't noticed it, were you saying something? Sorry.
No.
If you haven't noticed, there are 2 supplements at the back of your Course in Miracles book that are outstanding. One is called Psychotherapy, Purpose, Process, and Practice. And finally, a supplement called The Song of Prayer. So does this give you at least, you can get your feet wet on understanding how this is put together? First, it gives you the theory, then the application, and along the way, it also gives you a handbook so you can start to see how the course is changing you. He'll tell you some of the things you can expect. Questions, comments, criticism?
I think that this is probably what I needed before I went into the course and became thoroughly confused. No, this has been very, very helpful to me.
Yeah.
I'm so glad of
Been
that.
very helpful.
I'm so glad of
Yeah,
that.
it's very, very clear, and it's very helpful introduction, really.
Good.
Because I started this and the book was sent to me, and then I said, well, what do I do with it? Do I read it like a novel? And I'm going like, I can't do that. I mean, this is really heavy duty stuff.
Right.
And then they said, well, join a group. So I did. And as I said, the women in the group had been there for a long time. So we were just skipping over everything, going here, going there. And I'm going like, this is way too much for me. I can't handle it.
Yeah.
I'm not getting what I think I need from the course. So this has been very, very helpful.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Lead my church is Unity of Livonia. I don't know if you're familiar with Unity churches, but I go to Unity of Livonia in Livonia, Michigan. I've been there since 2006. And in 2007, they asked me to facilitate the Course in Miracles study group there. I still do that today. The pandemic came, and instead of in person, we meet on Zoom every Tuesday night from 7 to 8:30. And we follow a 1-year study schedule that I've created that allows us to study this book from cover to cover in 1 year. And so we've been using that schedule since like 2010. And it kind of gives uh, a direction to how to, one way to study this. There are many ways, and Jesus talks about that. Some people prefer to start with the manual for teachers because it's only 92 pages to get an idea of it. Others start the workbook, others start from the beginning. But my group goes cover to cover. I'll be giving you more information about that. Let's move to our wrap up here, and I'm going to get you on
Okay.
out of this thing real soon. Let me share screen. I want to share this screen slide with you, and this is our wrap up here. And like we said, are there any final questions or comments, my friends?
Boy, nothing comes to my mind right now.
That's
My mind
fine.
just kind of feels like it's filled up.
Yeah, I tell my students, let me know when I'm giving you a headache and I'll stop. Well, let me, in closing, tell you about what I will send you by email shortly after we close. I'll send you something called a participant package. And in that, there'll be a document with a workshop summary. It'll contain all the screen slides we've looked at today. I've also included some information about my nonprofit, Love Communications Ministries, LCM, and more information about my book. It's called Earth School. It also some information if you're interested in joining my Unity of Livonia study group. You can let me know and I'll get you on our Zoom list for that. And you can join us on a weekly basis as we take a 1-year journey through the course. And remember, you don't have to start at the beginning, okay? So if you're interested, just let me know. Part 2,
Okay.
I'd like to give you, it's called My ACIM Study Schedule. It's a customizable 1-year study schedule that you can start on any day you want. Just put your start date at the top of it's a Excel spreadsheet. If you put your name and put your start date on it, it'll tell you what to read every day to complete this book from cover to cover. Hey, it's the same schedule we use at Unity of Livonia, only it's been made so it will populate the dates consistent with whatever date you want to start. So that's a complimentary gift I'd like to send you for spending some time with me today. And finally, I will send you a link to the workshop evaluation form, and I will figure out, hey, Mike, do you have a different email from Carol's?
Yes, I do. Would you like to have it?
Yeah, as soon as you can, just send it to me, and then I'll send each of you an evaluation form and all the materials separately that way. And finally, I'll send you a link if you'd like to make a donation to Love Communications Ministries. It's through PayPal. You can do a one-time or a recurring gift. But I will send all of this to you shortly after we're done. And the main thing I want to do is I want to look at faces. I do this at the end of each of my study group, and I look at everybody and I'm looking for smiles because I work for smile. Remember, if you're not smiling, I haven't delivered the real spirituality. You're not a filthy, miserable sinner. And that's the truth. Thank you
All
for
right.
joining me. I look forward to our continued association. It was a special surprise too, Carol, that Mike was led to join us today. I don't know if Carol told you I was down with a real bad cold last month. And so I had to postpone until today. So, hey guys, I had a good time. I hope you did too. I'll see you soon. If there's any assistance I can provide to you in any way, don't hesitate, okay? Have a good
Okay,
rest
thanks
of your
very
day.
much.
You're welcome. Take
Okay.
care, y'all.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right. Bye, Jim.
Bye-bye.